Hi, welcome to Teach With Me. I am Miss Jen. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to teach your kids how to tell time. We're going to be talking about teaching them to tell time on an analog clock, not the digital one, so analog clocks. For this, every child is going to need to have one of these, and you will need a clock yourself, something that you can manipulate. It's really important when you're telling time that the kids have a way that they can manipulate their clocks. All right, so the very first thing you need to know is that you can't teach this at the very beginning of the year. There are a lot of concepts that the kids need to have in place before you can teach telling time. They need to have number sense. They need to understand a little bit about counting by fives, a little bit of elapsed time practice, and we'll go into teaching that, but they kind of need to have an idea of which things take longer and which things don't. All right, well, let's begin. I'm going to start by introducing to you the thing I would do at the very beginning. The very first thing I would do is I would show the kids a clock, and I would say each clock has two big hands on it. Two hands, is a shorter hand and a longer hand. The shorter hand is the hour hand, the longer hand is a minute hand. And I would just talk about how those are different and how it's really important that you know which one is which. Now, before we get into any of the lessons, we're going to play a couple of games to sort of cement some of these concepts. We're going to have all the kids sit on the carpet. I'm going to have to pre-make these. I'm going to pre-make a minute hand and an hour hand. And notice I want them to match the clock that we are using, so that there's not any confusion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say things like, okay, which one's a minute hand? Hold it up. Which one's the hour hand? Hold it up. Minute, hour. We're going to make it a game until I'm seeing that no one's messing these up. They're understanding which one is which. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be talking about concepts. So we're going to play a little game where I say something like, how long do you think it's closer to a minute or closer to an hour to brush your teeth? And they should say minute. And then we'll say, how about watching a TV show? A minute or an hour? And we're going to go through a whole bunch of ideas and discuss which one we think is it's closer to a minute or an hour. Riding a bike, smiling at someone, shaking hands with someone, taking off your shoes, playing at the park. And so, for example, if they said, oh, I think it's an hour to shake hands, well, then we're going to shake hands and we're going to see. I might even put a timer on my phone to show them exactly how long a minute is. And then I'll go over some things like I'll say, okay, when we go to lunch, do you think that's closer to a minute or an hour? And I'll say, that's closer to an hour. And it's not an hour, but it's closer to an hour. A minute is a short amount of time, and an hour is a longer amount of time. So we're building the concepts before we get into teaching time. So, all right. The very next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have them all sit on the carpet with their little clocks, and I'm going to sit at my chair with my big clock, and I'm going to make a time on here that I want them to copy. Now, the first time we do this, the first day, we're only doing on the hour, and we're going to teach that the o'clock. So if it's on 12, we're going to say o'clock. So 5 o'clock, and we circle this and show how the hour, how it moves when the minute hand goes around once. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and then after I've gone around, I'm going to tell them, okay, I want everyone to make 1 o'clock, and that means that your minute hand has to be on the 12 and only your hour hand moves. And we'll go and practice having them do that a few times. Day 2, if they've gotten the hour hand, I might do to the half hour. For kindergarten, I'm only going to do to the half hour and to the hour if this is a hard concept. I've had classes where I could do to the quarter hour, and even some groups where I could take a smaller group and teach them to the minute. Some of them, it just really depends on your class, but half hour and hour are typically the times that you teach for kindergarten. And then the next day I would teach this. I would teach to the minute hand when it's on the 6, it's to the half hour. And I would teach them how to read between these lines. If it's not all the way on the 8, then it's the 7 still. It is 7:30. And we'll go around and we'll count by 5. So we'll go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And that's how we know. And I'll say, has it gone all the way around yet? No. So the hour hasn't changed. Only the minute has changed. So anyway, so that's what we'll do with that. Now, some of the strategies you can do it within the classroom. One of the things I would do is I would have them make a clock. I would do this in a small group. This one's a little tougher to do because you have to do the brad in the center. But they make their own clock, and that way they get practice putting the numbers in the correct order. So that's important. And then we'll take this clock and we'll count by 5. So we'll go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, all the way around. Then another thing you can do is worksheets. And these you can do them in little sleeves so that you can continually practice. You can have a bunch of different assortment of these worksheets that they can do in different centers that can be checked, wiped off, done again. Okay, and then another thing I've mentioned before, task boxes. So task boxes, if you recall, are these little boxes that the kids go grab when they're finished at their center. They're done with all of their independent work, and they can go grab this when they still have some extra time. And so you want to have gone over these at the beginning, of course, but this particular one, the clock would be inside of it, and they have, let me show you, they have a clock. They have to try to imitate the time on the clock. So this one is 11:30. So I'm going to make 11:30. Let me go all the way around. So they're going to try to imitate it, and then they're going to try to read it, and the answer's on the back. You want these to be able to be checked so that it's not something they have to go ask somebody about. All right. So to finish this lesson up, every day that week that I'm talking about time, I'm reading a book that has to do with time. If you've ever read The Grouchy Ladybug, that one is perfect because a grouchy ladybug goes from animal to animal looking for a fight, and each time it's a different hour. There's several books out there. That's the one that comes to mind at the moment. But anyway, I would read a different book about time. I would practice time every single day. The kids would have worksheets to do or work to do on time. I would also have different time games that I would do with them on the carpet throughout the entire week. 2 game ideas would be there are bingo games that are telling time. So that's a good one. And then also I like to do races with the kids. I'll have 2 kids come up. I'll tell them a time. They'll each have a clock and see who can make the time faster on their clocks. So that's a fun one too. All right. So I hope you found this useful. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share. And I will see you next time.